Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We talk everything animation here, including RWBY, which we'll be getting into right now. I'm Dylan Hysen, and today I'm joined by Hayley Nabuurs.
Hello.
And Andy Potter.
Hello.
Today, Hayley, Andy, and I are discussing The More the Merrier, Chapter 11 of Volume 5 of RWBY. We'll discuss whether it's true that the more episodes, the merrier the season. And, we talk about RWBY every week here on the Overly Animated Podcast. Find us at overlyanimated.com or search for Overly Animated RWBY on iTunes and subscribe there or on YouTube to not miss any of our RWBY, weekly episode discussions. So yes, The More the Merrier premiered, earlier today on Rooster Teeth First. Make sure you have seen the episode and make sure you know what you're getting into with our podcast. I will see previous warnings. But yeah, Hayley, what did you think of this episode?
A lot. I thought about a lot when it came to this episode because it really was confusing, and because it was a lot of emotional highs and really dramatic and important moments, but then also a lot of time that, like, honestly, we could have edited it down a little bit and sped things up, and it would have been more succinct and just better overall. But then, at the same time, like, Weiss just got stabbed by Cinder at the end, so it's kind of insane. I assume this will be a common consensus, but I didn't love all the Jaune sudden drama. I assume we'll talk about that, and I think it's probably going to lead to us figuring out what his semblance is, but it just... Like, I know it was supposed to be emotional, everything, but just it being Jaune kind of, like, neutered how emotional it should have been for me. And, yeah, it was nuts, because it was very much like a big episode that we're building to. We've got our main crew, and we've got the enemies, and a big fight, but I didn't feel nearly enough, like, I don't know, excitement about it, but then at the same time, the very end was just like, oh, no, and then it cut to black. I'm like, the drama. So... I was left reeling after this episode, basically, for a lot of different reasons. That's my views.
We'll decompress on the events of the episode. We'll come to terms, but there you go. Okay, Andy, what do you think?
There was a lot to take in this episode. It was simultaneously moving really fast and moving really slow, and I don't know how they did that.
It's kind of impressive.
Yeah, because some moments I was like, whoa, can we, like, hold up for a minute and, like, talk about this? And some moments, like, can we just shut up for, like, ever? And there were moments that they focused on things that I didn't understand. Like, I didn't understand why we got to focus on Oscar fighting Lionheart when we had all these other cool fights to watch. And I don't know why we got Jaune, which we'll talk about. And and obviously Weiss is a thing. And there were just weird focuses in this episode, and I'm not 100% sure how to feel about some things. For any other show, I would say Weiss isn't dead, but for this show, I'm like, they could be that dumb, and I hope we're just gonna get Jaune's semblance, and then he gets pushed into a closet somewhere, but we'll see.
That's the best case scenario.
That is literally the best case scenario.
They leave the school, they're like, oh, darn, where'd Jaune go? He disappeared, we forgot about him.
He's in a broom closet.
Yeah, that could be the solution.
Yeah.
That's the solution.
Miles will never let that happen, but, yeah. Okay, can we skip my thoughts? I don't even want to. I'm done.
It's all gonna come out all at once.
I'm off it. Okay, I'm not. Yeah, we'll get it as the podcast goes along. I don't even feel like it, to be honest. Let's talk about, let's talk about the end of this episode. So Weiss gets speared by Cinder.
Jesus.
Oh my god!
No.
And
Weiss. And I was so excited too because she almost won our like end of the year wrap up about the greatest character, and I was so happy for her. And then she almost dies. Well, maybe dies. I don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, Weiss was nominated for our main character of the year in our end of year awards, and she almost won. She was very close to winning.
Close.
And I think if we'd seen this episode, she would have been much further away from winning.
Yeah. Well, I was prepared to come into this, like recording this podcast and be like, "Oh, Weiss, so great, amazing," and then it's just like, "No, she's almost dead."
Yeah. So, okay, in the service level reading of what happens at the end of the episode is that Weiss is dying because it's pretty similar to what happens with Pyrrha at the end of Volume 3.
Show dead.
She doesn't disintegrate, however, the spear disintegrates. Hayley, what was your reaction to this?
Like shock and also anger at Jaune, because I'm like, come on, Jaune, you had to like just sacrifice yourself. You didn't have to say they're the ones that matter. Like, come on, she's a supervillain. She's gonna go after them then. And I feel like you were saying, Andy, I feel like any other show, because they like hit her through the chest and then it goes away. She didn't like blow into dust, which is awesome. I would normally say that she is not dead and we'll pick up next episode and heal her or whatever. But RWBY is unpredictable. They don't normally do what we expect them to do, which is interesting. But I hope in this case they do what I'm expecting them to do. Also because I just feel like maybe it might be a naive thing, but I feel like the name of the show is all their names, RWBY, and I think that they can't kill her off. I really hope they don't kill her off because she's had so much good character growth, but I don't know. I feel like she's not going to die. I just think that would be a really big misstep for the writers.
That's us every week. That would be a big misstep, but it might be true. Yeah. Andy, what was your reaction, and is Weiss dead?
I don't want to answer that because.
Well, what was your reaction to it?
My reaction was just Jaune is an idiot.
Yeah, same. My first thought was Jaune. No.
That is literally the worst thing you can possibly say to the villain with firebending powers in a world without that. Like, don't say this to the mystical lady who already killed one of your friends. Don't. And then she did it. And I'm not even angry. I'm just like, why am I even watching this show anymore?
Yes. There you go. That was my reaction. That was it.
No. Because even if they make her not dead, then it's just like stupid.
It's just a plot with Jaune. That's all it is.
It's just a source of drama for Jaune. He's probably going to start the next episode and like burst into lightning or something, and out of anger and sadness. And then she'll be fine. Or they kill her off, which would be horrible on so many levels. Yeah.
There's no way this is good. There's just no way.
Yeah.
No.
So we've identified Weiss as being by far the best element of RWBY at the moment. And what do? Is they potentially kill her. Yeah. So that's just it's literally the worst thing they could have done if she does die, because they are getting rid of their only good element, arguably, of the show. So you're right. Andy's right that there's no good outcome of this, because if Weiss is not dead, which she's not, I'll get to that. Then this was still terrible. Like, what's the point? That's my thing. What is the point of this? Because it just actively upset me. I don't know what the drama's accomplishing. It's a big character moment for Jaune, who's a character that doesn't matter. The biggest sin of this episode and this scene is that this big moment for Weiss, who's actually a character we care about and a main character, is centered around Jaune's reaction. And that's like by far the worst way they could have phrased the scene, and that they did it anyway. So if it's like what's the point? It just actively upset me, and it's just terrible. The show's allowed to be dark and allowed to be gritty and stuff, but I don't know what this is accomplishing.
No,
it's like torturing your audience. Why are you doing it?
It sucks because and we haven't seen the next episode yet, but I feel like it would logically make sense for this whole randomly focusing on Jaune again is to lead to him getting his semblance and finding himself and whatever, which is fine, but I don't like that it's coming out of the murdering or like hurting of a character that we love and a female character that we love. Like, that's not the way to go about it, guys. Like, you don't take the best thing about your show right now, the best character that you've spent a lot of time on and have made really, really good, and then take a character who's really bad and make it doesn't make any sense. They could have done this in so many other ways. They didn't have to like murder or injure or whatever is going to happen to her with Weiss.
So you can kill characters. You can kill main characters, but they
Yeah.
needs to be done in a way that makes some amount of sense.
Yeah.
If
And
we had
actually
a
has an
whole
impact
season,
in-
if we had a whole season leading to this moment, and we're like, okay, this makes sense, even if it shocked us, it made sense.
It's building up
But
to
this
it.
like this isn't where Weiss was going, unless we're going with the most sadistic route possible, because we saw her being super nice and turned her like perspective on life around and hugging everyone.
Nice Weiss.
Nice Weiss. Yes, yes, yep. And so this wouldn't be the way to do it. And yeah, so the terrible thing about this is that one, that you're even threatening to kill Weiss, which is honestly like one of my only attachments to the show. If Weiss is dying,
very manipulative.
It's very manipulative the audience. Honestly, if Weiss is dead, I probably am done with RWBY. I've said that like once or twice before this season, but like I don't think I can continue. I think the podcast would end.
But I mean, like, I think you're right. Like, what is there to talk about anymore? It's just the Jaune show at that point, because it's clearly just a vehicle to motivate Jaune and nothing else at that point.
Here's why this scene is so bad. Is that like Jaune? First of all, Jaune wasn't even a main character this season. They successfully shoved him to the back, which was good.
Which is great. Good.
But yeah, the thing is that this scene is violence against Weiss in order to like violence against a woman to further a male's character arc. It's like classic sexism in media, and it's just such an obvious like terrible move. This is like, to me, very reminiscent of a scene in season 5 of Game of Thrones with Sansa and how terrible that was. But it was so bad because it was through the perspective of the male character who was watching that unfold, and it was like centered in on his face, and it's like his reaction's the one that matters here. And it's the same thing here with Jaune. We cut to his face, we show him crying. Weiss this only happens to Weiss because Jaune like turned to look at her earlier, and Jaune's
Weiss isn't even like going down fighting. Like, she gets stabbed literally in the back.
It's not
she doesn't even get a moment to herself.
It's just not about Weiss, and the show doesn't even care about her. It's all about Jaune, who's this just naughty character none of us care about. And so centering it on Jaune's perspective, like regardless of Weiss potentially dying here, that's like the terrible part. So Weiss is not dead. I'm 98% sure that this is true. I agree with Andy that you can never be sure with RWBY because the show is not particularly well mapped out.
It doesn't follow the normal rules of storytelling.
Yeah. Like, we were sure Giro was dead, and he's not dead, and I'm sure that Weiss is not dead. But so here's the question: how is Weiss not dead? This is at least something of this is the most fun discussion we can have here. So I have several ways where we could save Weiss. Other than, of course, this just not being a fatal wound, which could be true. She's pierced in the kind of right side of her torso. In theory, there aren't really vital organs there. It's not like she got hit through the heart or anything.
But she didn't, at least from what I could tell, we didn't see like a big gaping hole in her chest once the thing faded away. Right?
It was from the side. That's when it faded away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she could just survive from. Well, I don't know.
I think my assumption is this is a fatal wound. I think this is supposed to be like she's burning up on the inside from this like pyramid.
Right. So she gets stabbed with a thing that's on fire. So like in real life, she'd
pretty
bad.
Dead.
So setting aside that it just might not be fatal, I have 4 ways that Weiss could not die here, and I want you guys to take your pick. Number 1 is what you guys already mentioned, which is that next episode Jaune's semblance will be revealed, and it will somehow save Weiss, whether it be he has healing powers, he has bring back to life powers, or he can go back in time a minute and then to prevent this from happening. Those are the ones that I've heard about. So that's number 1. Number 2, RWBY Silver Eyes. We saw this earlier in the episode. RWBY does do Silver Eyes, and it doesn't do anything.
Very
randomly.
She
could just Silver Eyes again, and we don't really know what that does. So maybe that can save Weiss. Number 3 is, I think, the most interesting one, which is that this was not actually Weiss. This was a Blake clone of Weiss, and that Blake has actually been here all along, off screen. She showed up at the end of last episode. She created clones of Weiss, so this was not actually Weiss dying.
Can she do that, though? I thought she could only do it of herself.
I think she did it once.
Did she do clones of someone else? Yeah, I think I heard people talking about this, so I assume she can. But
cool.
Number 4 is that this is just an illusion from Emerald. We saw this earlier in the episode. Emerald makes illusions, and when we have a character that can just make things seem not real, you always have to take that into account.
Yeah.
Okay, Hayley, which one is it?
the one I'm going to choose is not the one that I want it to be. I would much prefer it to be the other three, particularly the Blake one. That would be awesome. But I think it's probably going to be that Jaune's semblance will save her, which sucks. But that seems to be what they're leading up to. And also, we got a couple episodes ago where they were talking about semblances, and they're like, oh, it's like a thing that happens to you, and that's what gets you your semblance, like how Nora got struck by lightning, Ren lost his parents, that kind of thing. Yeah. So this is obviously a pretty emotional, traumatic experience for Jaune, so it would make sense that it would come out of that, especially since he's basically the one that killed her, so he'd feel pretty responsible. So I would predict, number one, Jaune being it, but I would much, much prefer to be something else. Like maybe Weiss suddenly has ice powers, and it's a fire sword, so nothing happens. Like, I don't know. But I think that might be too out of the ordinary. I feel like probably Jaune having a semblance that will fix it.
Weiss saves herself. I guess that could be an option. Who knows?
That would be nice.
Anything could come out of it.
Anything where Jaune doesn't there's no
yeah. Like, unlike the other four, there's no previous thing said in the show that would
exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay,
and what would be the point of Jaune suddenly breaking down and doing all of this if there wasn't some sort of climax to that, right?
Right. So Hayley presents the evidence of we heard earlier in the season. You need an event to trigger the semblance, and also that this is so focused on Jaune, and we see his reaction. So, do you agree?
See, I agree with that, but if you were any good at storytelling, which we have already discussed that these people are not. You've just included in a fight like this that clones and misdirection are a thing. And it was actually pretty subtly, or not so subtly, but I think it was well done to submit this into the idea that there could be clones and stuff running around with Emerald.
Very true.
I think that's great, but I know they're not going to do that. They've planted these seeds in a way that any normal show would be like, yeah, you should be thinking there's something wrong going on here. But I know that's not going to happen, and we're just going to focus on Jaune because this show always focuses on Jaune when it should be focusing on literally anybody else. And so Jaune is going to get some power. That's going to be... If he gets reviving the dead, I think that's equivalent to just dropping the show. Because...
No, who cares?
To Weiss dying. Because that makes him the most important person in the world, and I cannot stand that.
No.
Yeah, but then we get Zombie Pyrrha then.
But
yes, Zombie Pyrrha.
Yeah, this brings up a good question of not Zombie Pyrrha, although I still think that's happening at the end of the season.
Just Zombie Pyrrha.
Yeah, which is why did Pyrrha dying not trigger Jaune's semblance?
Right? Because he didn't watch it happen, I guess?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
He learned about it afterwards.
Yeah. So about the Emerald Illusion thing, we already did that is the problem. That was in Volume 3 when that's how Pyrrha ripped Penny apart, yeah.
But I think it's not specifically a allusion to Emerald doing it. I'm thinking it's just saying like, oh, clones are a thing, so Blake could be a thing. Like, I think that's actually an allusion to Blake doing stuff, not Emerald.
Yeah, and here's the choice number 3 here, which is that this was a Blake clone of Weiss. It would be so well set up by the season.
I love that. Yeah. That'd be so awesome.
I've been saying literally every podcast for like 10 in a row that let's remember Blake's storyline is behind all the other ones, and so Blake could be here right now. She could have shown up at the end time. Yeah, like the only reason you do this taking place in the past thing is so Blake can show up. So she has to surprise, be a part of the plot, and this would be a great way to introduce her. The problem is, why would Blake be making clones of Weiss? Like, how do we know Weiss is going to get hit specifically? Like, I don't think that really makes sense to me. But just the concept of Blake showing up and turning this around makes total sense and was really well set up by the season.
I just thought of something.
Yes.
Okay, so you could very easily say, no, Hayley, this is not a legitimate thing. But I think it's something to consider. So in the opening credits for this season, there's that end fight, and it looks to me like that end fight where all our characters are fighting each other looks similar to the space that they're in now where they're fighting. And Weiss is alive in that, and Blake is there in the opening scene. And it could just be like, they were like, oh, we've got to reuse this, I don't know, set piece for this opening, whatever. But that makes me think that Weiss is not dead, and also that Blake is going to show up within this fight. It's not going to be like later on she'll show up in the market or whatever. Like, she'll be a part of this. So I don't know.
I mean, it could
We'll
be
see.
true, but just the opening credits aren't evidence because they're
it's not canon or anything. So
Well, actually, I think
It's
there's more
interesting.
I think there's more to put into this than just like, oh, it's just the opening credits, because they actually used the fights from the credits. They're just at a different angle when they're in the background. It's the exact
It's
same
very
animation.
much a
okay.
copy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can't
Here,
use the credits as proof because they aren't canon. But yeah,
No.
it could be. I do think Blake will show up this fight just because this is like part one of a probable 3 to 4 part finale. We still have 3 episodes after this. I think with the extra 2 episodes, what they're going to do is separate out the epilogue into its own episode. Considering we arrived at the finale so soon, but yeah, we haven't talked about this yet, but this is definitely part 1 of the finale. Like, we're gonna stay here for a while and just, like, we haven't even dealt with Adam or the attack on.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
So,
Part one.
We're killing a character. We haven't even met Adam yet.
yeah, I mean, he was in the episode, but he was just let's
Yeah.
blow up everything. That was Adam's episode.
Zipper edgelord guy.
Yeah. So, okay, it's definitely number 1. It's definitely John Semblance, just because why randomly frame this episode around John when the rest of the season hasn't, unless you're going to do this. Hayley Bright brings a great point about it being set up earlier in the season when we're explaining semblances. So we're definitely going to reveal John's semblance next episode. Weiss isn't going to be dead. Yeah. The problem is, other than John doesn't matter and that he wasn't a character this season, is that why does John care about Weiss? This is not, we were worried when Weiss came back because we're like, remember that time in volume 2, John had a big crush on Weiss, or volume 1, and we're worried that was going to be a thing, that we'd come back and John would start hitting on Weiss, but it didn't happen. So why does John care about Weiss?
I didn't even consider that this would be a through line to them having a relationship, Dylan. Why did you?
Oh, you didn't consider that as the first thing you think of. John brings Weiss back to life next episode. Weiss is
I hate it.
My hero, and then they start dating.
And then Yang swoops in and is like, this is my girl, and like,
So
that would be the better part. But
So now we have three different scenarios where I just dropped the show. He gets to bring people back to life powers.
Okay, I disagree with the bring people back to life. Whatever.
I
think that'd be hilarious. I want to see how they work with that, if that's what it is.
If John and Weiss start dating, that is going to be tough to swallow.
Oh, horrible.
I might throw up.
Yeah. So that's what's happening next episode for sure. Weiss, if that's the scenario where John's semblance is developed because this and brings Weiss back to life, it's developing John as a character and having this big moment for him through violence towards women, especially a woman that doesn't even like him. Like, Weiss doesn't like him back. She didn't consent to liking him or anything. So it's kind of has that element too. So it's really just all awful. And
I hope they show him caring about all the other people in the team, because that would help. But it definitely seemed like he was really focusing on Weiss a lot this episode.
I mean, he says all of them with his "if I die, buying them" time. But the reason
he keeps saying them.
Yeah, the reason
Weiss.
Cinder attacks Weiss would be because John was looking at her earlier, and
I wish this was not wish is a strong word, but I'd prefer if this was again someone from his own team, from Juniper, like Ren or Nora.
Right. You think this would involve Nora because
you
think if anyone this is going to happen to, it'd be Ren or Nora because that's his actual team. Weiss,
Yeah.
there's just no reason for John at
Weiss.
this point
There just
to care
isn't.
about Weiss.
I think if it was Ren or Nora, it would actually be more impactful as well. Because they have a longer connection, right?
The only reason that it's Weiss is because John, a while ago, had a one-sided crush on her.
Yeah, and maybe
That's it.
because we care about her more now. But
And even if Weiss doesn't come back to life and then like John at all, even if they don't do anything romantically with that, it still is a bad message because it's like John caring about John's stupid crush that's not returned. It has actual meaning to no, it's not. It doesn't matter. And the baffling thing is they haven't even presented it in the season, so I don't know why that would. The
even crazier thing is she could have gone after RWBY. It just been I'm doing it for John, but it's clearly Cinder wants to kill RWBY for her own reasons, and RWBY was standing was standing right next to her.
And we presented Cinder's main motivations before this as just anger at RWBY, and that doesn't even come into play. Just for some reason, she latches onto John and just wants to hurt him. She could have attacked Weiss to do maximum pain to RWBY, which would make sense, but that's not what the episode presented.
does she know that? Does she even know they have a relationship?
I don't even know if she knows the relationship. I don't even know if she knows their teammates. Yeah, and I guess she does because they were students there.
Yeah, they were at the festival together. But I think if she had done this to RWBY, I'd been like, she's not actually doing this for Jaune. She's doing it for herself, and I wouldn't be as upset about it, and I would know that she would survive. But like, this is just like so weird and dumb.
So out of left field. It's really weird.
Yeah. So just all parts of this are just really terrible. And as you could tell from my energy level of this podcast, I'm just off it. So I'm done. Let's talk about the rest of the episode. I didn't even like the rest of the episode.
No.
Because I just didn't buy into these one-on-one fights. Like, I like that we finally have a fight scene, but like, it just felt contrived to me that we just break off into one-on-one fights in this.
They honestly, like, especially when they cut over to, there was the Yang and Mercury one, like, it looked like an arcade fight. Like, it was weird, because it was just all these little vignettes of them fighting, and not caring about any of the other villains. Like, they're like, okay, you're my teammate, let's go. And it wasn't very convincing, and yeah, I don't understand what that was all about. And Ruby Silver Eyes, I know we're going to talk about that, but I think that just confused the episode even more, because it was already half really slow and boring, and then half like, oh, okay, I guess I should be getting excited because they're fighting, which is neat, and then just Silver Eyes all of a sudden. So it was very confusing fight scenes. I think that's what the problem was. Yeah.
Do you agree, Andy?
This is just not what I was expecting, I guess, because like, I agree with like everything Hayley just said, and I was expecting something more like if you've seen the first Avengers movie, there's a fight scene in New York where it's like cuts between all of the Avengers fighting together, but across the city, and they're helping each other while doing their own fights.
Exactly, they're not just ignoring each other.
Yeah, I was expecting something more on that level, not like that complex or that over the top, but they would interact with each other while fighting, because they're a group. They're trying to not die together. That seems like the whole point of Ozpin's group, to not die and survive to reach Salem and Vernal and stuff. Like, but they immediately did the one thing you should never do, as Scooby-Doo has told us, which is split up.
Yeah,
and
like, let's each pick a corner.
Yeah. And like, it's even crazier because it's not a big room.
No.
Like I said, Ruby's right next to Cinder. And her semblance is speed, isn't it? Like, she could just go really fast.
Not that we've seen that in a while, but yeah.
Yeah, no, we haven't in a while, but that is her semblance.
Yeah, the other problem is that I don't care about half of these fights.
Yes.
Like, we have, like, Ren and Nora against Hazel for half a second, which is just so stupid.
Yeah.
That I have nothing to say about that one. We can go through all of them. We had Yang versus Mercury, which was also really stupid. Apparently, Yang did something to Mercury's leg.
No, Dylan, that was the whole trigger for Volume 3. She quote unquote broke Mercury's leg in the ring.
Oh, and that's why everyone hated Yang. Yeah,
I
blocked out
all the bad emotions, which triggered all the Grimm to come to Beacon.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't. That they didn't do anything with them other than that statement.
Yeah.
We had Raven and Crow fighting. Nothing really came of that this episode.
Yep.
No.
Yeah. We had Ruby. Ruby and Emerald was. But what about Raven?
I was just gonna say, I had a moment. Maybe because the fights were just lagging so long that I had time to like really think things through here. But in the Raven and Crow fight, they were like, "Oh, you're not my family." Like, were we ever? And everything. And then I noticed they look really different. Like their eyes are very like they really don't like. Aside from having black hair and liking red, like that's one of the main connections between them. Like even their skin colors really different. So are they maybe not actually related? Like that was a weird line.
I don't know.
Because they obviously got along before.
I don't think that's what that was trying to say. But
I know.
That is that's an interesting point. I think they're supposed to be twins, right? Like,
yeah.
And they don't. I've never thought they really looked like twins that much.
Yeah, they don't look that alike. I agree. It was a weird line, but I think it was more just like a contrite. We were never, so.
Angry.
The ones that Weiss versus Vernal actually I think is another one that didn't really matter. They spent a lot of time here because we needed to just build up Weiss, I guess. But yeah,
I like that fight because it showed Weiss bouncing around on her glyphs.
Yeah,
and
she
stuff.
was doing glyphs, and she kept trying to summon, and Vernal kept cutting her off. Basically,
yeah. I really liked her using the anti-gravity dust in the fight that we saw in the beginning of the season, though. Like she used that to like push herself back away, which was a cool move.
And Vernal's weapons were cool. I think out of all the other fights, this was the better one. I think
it had good elements. This was unsatisfying to me because Vernal is like not a character, and Weiss, we built Weiss up as a good fighter. So just seeing her
powers?
Just seeing her getting like destroyed was just not fun. I don't care about Vernal. You've not convinced me that Vernal is a good fighter and should be able to beat Weiss. So I don't know why Vernal.
Not to mention Vernal's holding back.
And Vernal was not using her maiden powers. It's not worth it to use it on Weiss.
She wasn't giving her a slight breeze to cool her off.
It's like not only does this episode just almost kill Weiss without focusing on her at all, we actively see her just like being a bad fighter earlier in the episode. It's just doing, and she has her only line is just really contrite. We'll talk about that, but yeah, it was just a really bad use of Weiss the entire episode. Anyway, Ruby versus Emerald I thought was somewhat interesting. I mean, these are two of my favorite characters, and in a different context, I'd love this, but basically we learn here, Emerald says, "I don't care about Salem, but I owe Cinder everything." So, Emerald.
What does that mean?
Well, we saw the backstory in Volume 3 of Cinder. I think Cinder like saved Emerald or something. Yeah. So basically, Emerald's in love with Cinder, does not care about Salem, which I think is interesting to know moving forward, and I think potentially sets up Emerald Redemption. Hashtag Emerald Redemption. Which is great because I would love to see Emerald be more of a character and be a good guy. So that's good to know. And I thought that was actually an element that was kind of interesting placed in the episode.
That was a neat little thing that we can see going forward. Like if something happens with Cinder, or she goes too far or something like that, then Emerald might join them.
We have Cinder versus Jaune. We talked about this. She's a fire sword, whatever. Potentially the most like plot relevant fight was Oscar versus Lionheart, even though we don't care about this. We learned this is new information. We learned that Lionheart is a faunus.
Yeah. I know. I was like, did we know this already? I didn't know.
I also thought it. Now I do not believe we did. So that was kind of a reveal, and also I think they talk. The one thing that I noticed they talked about, which I think is kind of new information, is Lionheart says this couldn't have happened that long ago. You're not really Ozpin right now. So I think what this does is it supports the reading that Ozpin and Oscar will eventually assimilate into just Ozpin, but they are not yet at that point.
Like the Oscar version of Ozpin, but
for now, Oscar has autonomy, or either he has autonomy and he's just going to be absorbed by Ozpin, which would suck, or they're separate, it could be the other way, or they just merge into some half and half, and they're not merged yet. Basically, is the main point. Like I think that gives us more information than we had previously about their situation. So we are going. This isn't going to be the way it is forever with Oscar and Ozpin. Basically, if Lionheart is correct about this.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about Ruby's Silver Eyes moment, because this was big moment. Volume 3 hasn't happened again, and then she Silver Eyes. Basically, it seems like Emerald's whole purpose in the fight is to make sure Ruby does not Silver Eyes Cinder again. She's like bodyguarding Cinder. And she does. She interrupts her Silver Eyes, so I guess Ruby doesn't get the full effect of it. Cinder just hurts for like 5 seconds, and then she gets back up. Like, what happened here? Nothing?
A flash of light. It was so weird.
To have any idea of what happened, we would have to have someone explain what Silver Eyes is, and we still haven't done that in 2 seasons.
Yeah. So presumably nothing happens, but Ruby starts to Silver Eyes because she gets flashbacks of Pyrrha, which was another building up into the Weiss moment, and that happened.
But this is just another thing where it's like, why didn't Cinder attack Ruby? Like, Ruby just did the thing that you hate. Like, why are...
so Cinder locks onto Jaune. The best moment of the episode, by far the best moment. One of the best moments of the series, to be honest, within this terrible episode, is John's like John gets triggered and gets really mad at Cinder talking about killing people, and it's like and then Cinder's like, who are you again?
Yeah.
Oh,
yes,
John.
That's me.
Oh, we're horrible.
I was so bullish about the episode after that moment. It was all downhill from there. Where are you again? So, but yeah, why does Cinder lock onto John after that? She doesn't know who he is.
I don't know. Maybe you could read it that she's like being too cocky and is like, "Oh, I'll deal with RWBY later. Like, I can take care of this guy." I'm also shocked that Jaune actually lasted as long as he did.
Oh, but he didn't, though.
He did. Like, she was going easy on him.
But that's why none of these fights work. Everyone's just going easy on all the protagonists. Every single one of the fights is just going easy on them.
Mm-hmm. There's one bit where Jaune was
at least Cinder and Vernal are, yeah.
Yeah, and he was bringing his sword down under, and she's like casually lifted her arm up and stopped it in like 2 seconds. I thought that was great, and then they just cut away. So obviously she was humoring him, I suppose, but I don't know. It was, and then he got a hit on her after the weird Silver Eyes mini explosion. Yeah. But
why didn't he slash? He stabbed instead of slashed.
You don't attack the rock part of her face, Jaune. Like, come on, dude. Anywhere else you would cut her. Not at the rock.
You didn't have to aim for her head. If you like cut her leg off, she's done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Attacked the Zuko scar part. Yeah. So I don't know. It didn't make a lot of sense that the Cinder John stuff, but the other reason that this episode didn't work for me is that the whole concept of the episode is stupid. We see Weiss Weiss's one line is, "This was all just a trap." Earlier in the episode, which they knew it already.
That. Yeah,
they knew that.
Why did you walk into this situation?
They knew Lionheart was shady. Like, they knew.
We had a whole scene about this. Ozpin and Crow talked about it, and they knew it was a trap, and they just went there anyway.
But
why?
So shortly preceded by Nora talking about the dumb birds again. Like,
oh yeah,
and we also had a quote from Nora. They really are magic. That was funny. Yeah,
there were
funny in a bad way. Yeah,
there are so many lines in this episode that were just like, we've already talked about this like 10 times. Please stop.
I did like how like the Raven came down and transitioned into her like so fast. That I like that. It looked cool. But then immediately followed by, "They're really magic." Like, no. God, no.
We didn't need to talk about it.
We already understand.
It's like the cool guys don't look at explosions things. It's the same for writing. Like, if you point out the cool thing you did, it is no longer
you're describing
cool.
The entirety of RWBY. So it's like just the entire episode's contrived. The situation that they walk into, they don't build up this being the finale well. They just it just happens, like, and they just go there despite them knowing that it was a trap.
It'd be sneakier, you know? Like, they were like, "Oh, okay, like, fine, we'll get Crow in and we'll kill him, but we really need to get the relic and everything." I thought it'd be more like well played. They just walked into a room and they're like, "Okay, let's fight, guys."
Yeah, the way they walk in, it just seems like they don't have any suspicions about Lionheart at all. Which
no, it wasn't building any suspense leading up to that moment. Which
so the setup is contrived. The one-on-one fights seem contrived to me, and through all that contriving, the place that they arrive is teasing a Weiss death. Like, that's the thing that you like, you could contrive anything. Like, if it's not well set up, you could just do anything at the end of this episode. And literally the worst thing that they could think they could have done is the thing that they choose to do. So yeah.
Oh,
are there any other words to say?
I guess we hit it. I have some other stuff in the beginning of the episode, but it's nothing important. We're talking like RWBY's trying to get Raven to be good. I don't know, who cares?
This episode is like the epitome of like, I don't know what the show's about anymore. Like, I just don't. I don't know who is the main character. Like, this episode says it's Jaune, but other episodes of the season.
We did it. We're doing such a good job of building back up Team RWBY, and then this is the opposite of that. Yeah.
Well, they just didn't set up Jaune being a character at all, and all of a sudden he's weeping and like won't look up, and then became the main focus of this whole finale episode. Like, it came.
I buy Jaune getting like triggered and breaking down because he sucks. Like, that's
Well,
I buy
he's
that.
like the murderer of like the person that he really cared for.
Yes, like that's a realistic reaction. Yeah, but the focus on him, you know, that's
also. Also, is anyone else like listening to Crow say like calm down, guys, and be like, "Crow, you're already surrounded. There's going to be a fight here." Like,
Crow was trying to defuse the situation.
And it's like, Crow, there's no situation to defuse. You've been ambushed. There's no like diffusing at this point.
Yeah, Crow seemingly does not understand the seriousness of that, even up to that point. So I don't. Yeah, is Crow just stupid? Like, I don't get it.
Like, everyone's stupid. That's the point of this episode. No one does what they actually want to do.
Yeah. Okay. In conclusion, they're basically like going. Okay, so 2 weeks ago we had that last week off. 2 weeks ago, I was just so happy with the show. We had this like really bad use of the Ilya coming out episode, and it was like a great episode, but it had like really socially problematic. And then they kind of rectified it a little bit 2 weeks ago, and it was I was just really happy. We had those great Ilya and Blake and Ilya Blake's son scene, and it just felt really excited and happy about RWBY. And then going into this episode, I said in our Discord, I was like, I'm feeling really good about this episode. I think it's going to be really good. I'm really happy with this show. And then it's just like the worst thing ever again. So it's just the show, watching the show is just so terrible. It's just so frustrating. Like, the season has had like 3 good episodes that have been really fun. And then there's also had these terrible, terrible events with this Weiss one, and then before with SantaCon, and they just botched the Ilya coming out, and it's like, why? It's just draining. It's emotionally draining. I'm just so attached to these characters, and these people are doing everything they can to make me not watch the show anymore. Like, there's almost nothing you can do to get me to not watch RWBY to the end, and they did one of the things here that could make me not do it.
Yeah.
Kill Weiss.
I'm just in. I just care so much, like almost more than any other thing, and then it's just so frustrating and so draining and just so disappointing. Like they're getting a lot more right here. And then you do this. I really hope the best case happens next week, and that Weiss obviously is not dead, and that it's not just a character moment for Jaune, but I'm sure it won't be. I'm sure we'll be complaining about it again, and I'm kind of just tired of this cycle.
I would appreciate if later on in one of these other episodes that are in the finale, Weiss like takes on Cinder somehow. Because that, like, I don't think there's a positive end to any outcome of this moment, but that might be kind of nice. Is
right.
Her at least having some agency?
Right.
It's the
if we need to kill Adam and it needs to be done by Yang and Blake. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like that ultimatum.
Like, and in Weiss, not defense, that's the wrong word, but Weiss just doesn't have she doesn't have any personal stake in any of this, unlike everyone else. Like, RWBY at least has a personal stake in Kira.
There's no connection, like
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, unlike everybody else. Like, literally, Cinder could have picked any person in the room, but they have more of a personal stake in how Cinder does anything. But Weiss literally has nothing, because she wasn't present at any of this stuff. It just makes no sense.
There are people that were closer to Cinder. Like, she didn't have to pick Weiss.
She could have just killed Jaune.
Or RWBY. She would have the perfect opportunity to kill the person that she clearly hates so much.
I'm sticking with Jaune.
Or Jaune, yeah.
Well, that would have been ideal, but
that would have.
Yeah, I was like excited. I will say, for those people that criticize us for hating Jaune too much, I will feed your fire, and I will say I was very excited while watching this episode that Jaune might die. I was very excited at that prospect.
But you knew that wasn't true in your heart of hearts, Dylan.
Look, I knew it wasn't true, but when Cinder starts attacking Jaune, I'm like, go Cinder, go Cinder. So, look,
power up. Use your fire sword.
Fire sword, go. Let's do it. Let's end this. Yeah. So I was thinking that. So come at me. But yeah. There you go. I don't know. I was going to say something else. Hayley, what are your final thoughts on this episode?
This was not the episode I wanted, coming off of a week break, which is unfortunate. And it was just really confusing. Like, that's the main problem with this one. I think if they took this episode and made it maybe like half or 3/4 the length it was, it would have been a lot, like, it wouldn't have been better, because there's still a lot negative with it, but it at least would have gotten its point across better and would have made more sense, I think. Just even a tiny bit, because there was moments where I was like, oh, how long is this episode? Like, it just keeps going and going, and that's not a good thing.
It wasn't even that long. Yeah.
No, that's the thing. Yeah, it wasn't even like the longest one we've gotten, but it just, like, nothing was happening really, and the fights were pretty anticlimactic, and there was just silly lines and dialogue. And then the ending, where, like, the first real moment where I was like, whoa, okay, like, I'm in it now, but not for the right reasons. Like, yeah. I'm angry now. Like, that's not a good way to end your, I guess, part 1 of 4 maybe finale episodes. So, yeah, I want to see what they do next week, because maybe things will happen, but yeah. I don't see a positive at least like socially and even storyline and character positive way of getting out of this Weiss gets speared debacle. Because it just any way we think of it, it's like she's just being used as either to like as a point of drama or to further the man's like ability to have his powers and everything. So I was not happy after watching this episode, basically, and also confused at the same time. So
this is the thing, Hayley. This is the 10th time we've said this was bad, but they could fix it next episode. We say that every week now.
Exactly.
I'm so sick of that. Just don't do the bad thing in the first place. Don't put yourself into a position where you have to fix it. Oh my god.
Get someone to edit it just a little bit for you. Like just pare it down a little bit.
Andy, final thoughts.
That was my final thought. That I usually this part of the podcast where I give an optimistic take and say this is what they could do with the story, but I'm out. I'm done. Like I can't do it. I can't do it for once. Like every week, I think you can go back and find that I've thought of some cool way the plot could go, and I'm like, hey, we could do this. And this week, I just can't do it. I can't get my mind to like think of a situation where this is fun or cool or even interesting. I'm just like.
It's like cruel to the viewers, honestly.
Like, it's insane because I was on their side this entire season where I was just like, I think we all were because we were thinking like it could get better, but it's like.
And Weiss is such a good character.
it was a fight for them to lose and they somehow lost it. Like they were ahead by like 50 somehow and they lost it all and it's just like, I can't. I lost an analogy there somewhere, but I just can't anymore.
Yeah, it's a bad analogy, but
it was. What I'm just saying is that they
should have put up more of a fight.
They lost us.
Yeah.
They lost me.
It might be it. But yeah, apologies for the lack of energy here. It's just I'm just very done with this. Let's end on a further negative note, and I'll say I am kind of worried about actually Weiss dying. The 2% is that because the one attachment they've developed with Weiss this season has been her connection with Yang.
Yeah.
And if we are going to go in the Bumblebee direction, which I am kind of convinced the show is doing, then this is a potential way to get Weiss out of the way.
Oh god, I love Bumblebee, but I don't want Weiss to die for it.
So what you're saying is we're icing the lesbian literally with the Ice Queen.
To create a lesbian romance.
Oh my god.
How confusing is that?
But yeah, that's the only, Dead Weiss isn't dying, but that would be the reason to do it.
No, if they kill Weiss, like that is so bad on so many levels. Like, even from a show writing perspective, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's just the best on the show. Yeah, we'll probably finish out podcasts on the season, regardless of what happens here. We have 3 left, but
we got to see what happens.
We're in danger of being done after that.
Weiss comes back as a ghost. You know, we've got options here.
Force Ghost Weiss. Yeah,
there's magic in the world now, so
zombie Weiss. Yeah, okay.
Oh, I would be impressed if she was a ghost and people were less surprised about her being a ghost than people being birds.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, ghost, that was a part of the RWBY mythology all along.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What's Nora's reaction going to be?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's Nora's reaction going to be when Jaune all of a sudden can reincarnate people? Like, her mind's going to be blown if she thinks...
Hopefully, Jaune's powers are just minor healing powers, and yeah.
From a fiery spear to the chest, but
it wasn't that bad.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's just a flesh wound. It's fine.
Okay,
it's a flesh wound. Yeah,
I got the energy. The best scenario is that Weiss just like gets up and like stabs Cinder back, and she's fine.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, another last thing I was going to say. This is another terrible cliffhanger in a season full of stupid cliffhangers.
So many cliffhangers.
I was like defending the cliffhangers for a while, and now it's just like this is like one of the main problems with the season. Okay, so let us know what you thought. If you'd more, there were people that liked the episode, so let us know what we're missing, the pause of the episode, and the YouTube comments or comments on overlyanimated.com. Please tell me why I shouldn't be done with the show.
Explain Silver Eyes to us again, please.
Yeah, tell us what Silver Eyes are. We still don't know. Let us know in the comments or come to the Discord and talk about it with us there, overlyanimated.com/Discord. And consider becoming a patron, patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thanks to all of our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Beatrice, aka Beatrix Cavendish. And thanks as always to our patron executive producers, John, Ryan, Steve, Alex, Andy, and Hugh. We'll be back at Overly Animated. We just had a bunch of movie podcasts go up. Check those out at overlyanimated.com. And it's kind of a quiet period, but we'll eventually have more Mystcons, more RWBY, more Ladybug, and Steven Universe also coming up in a week. So find all that at overlyanimated.com. Let us know what you thought of this episode, and we'll see. Cross your fingers for next week. We'll be back then to talk about more RWBY. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.